Hi.
Sec. Sorry, say something.
Hello.
Hey, okay, I can hear you. Of
Yay. Thank you so much for joining me today.
course.
So, how's your day going?
Good, you?
It's been a very rainy day, so it's been pretty depressing.
Oh, sorry to hear
I don't know if
that.
it's just me, but I think the rainy weather just kind of, I don't know, it doesn't exactly lift up the mood either. I'm not a big rain person.
Yeah, it's been a rainy couple years
Yeah.
in New York.
That's for sure. Okay, so I have a couple of interview questions for you today in regards to kind of like your occupation and like what you're doing right now. All
Sure.
right. So just to start off, so I saw that you went from being a cashier to a production intern like between 2013 and 2014. So I'm kind of like stuck in the same boat as you right now. So I've been a cashier for like 6 years now, and I'm trying to like step into your foot. So can you kind of tell me like what your beginning was on how you became a visual effects artist?
Yeah, so I was not a visual effects artist. I was a cashier in 2013, I believe,
Hmm.
and I became a visual effects artist in 2022 or 20, no, maybe 2020.
Hmm.
So it was a long time to get to there. And the cashier was just a summer job for my freshman year of college. I went to school for computer science, and then I switched into film after a couple years, and then I began working editing jobs and doing internships while I was still in school. So I, by the time I graduated, I was sort of already doing gigs, and then yeah, that's sort of how I made the transition to the industry, I guess.
So can you kind of like guide me through what your process was on like finding these gigs like while being in school? Like how were you able to like balance just like everything while being in college?
Yeah, so I would say when I went to film school, well, okay, when I did computer science, there was a very heavy workload, and I could not really handle doing, I mean, that pretty much on, I mean, I didn't flunk out, but I basically it was too much for me, even just that.
I'm actually stuck
So,
in the same boat as you because I went to college as like a computer science and design major. But I was
uh-huh.
like, this is like way too much. So I dropped the computer science like altogether. So I can definitely like relate to you on like on that case.
Sure. So when I switched over to film and I switched schools, I went from Northeastern University to Brooklyn College, which is a city school, and it has a decent film program, but even just I guess the combination of being a film program and a city school, it was not the most prestige, rigorous curriculum. So I mean, I on the one hand, the classes were not super intense. I mean, there was still homework and whatnot, but it was not nearly the same workload as a computer science degree. And then also, I would usually take about courses, a 2 to 3 courses a semester, so that I could take these gigs on the side. And the way I found the gigs was that, I mean, I did a couple internships that I applied for, but mostly I would say it was just finding stuff on the internet, finding Facebook stuff, finding yeah, it was I think mostly through Facebook is how I
Oh,
found
wow.
my gigs. I don't know if
Okay.
that's changed in the last 10 years, but yeah.
Yeah, I believe it's still like very relevant. It's funny because actually the other day I had a professor like say like, "Oh, raise your hand if you like still use Facebook." And like no one raised their hands and my
Yeah, I
professor was
don't.
like, "Yeah, even though it might be like out of style for you guys, it's actually like a really good spot for you guys to be looking for a job or like an internship." And I was quite shocked when I heard that because I honestly thought that like either LinkedIn was like the go-to or just like going on Google and looking something up. Like,
Yeah, my partner uses Facebook a lot to find gigs, and
wow.
I think it's just because there are the sort of the group feature, it sort of like creates almost like a community aspect of like, headhunting kind of stuff. People recommend each other, and I feel like LinkedIn is it's a little less like, I don't know, it's harder to just like do the recommendation stuff and no one, I don't know. I don't know anyone who really looks at LinkedIn on like a casual basis.
Okay, that's
Uh,
really good to know.
you know what I mean? Like people will just scroll Facebook and see like, oh, because I'm in this group, like I'm seeing there's like a little job thing. And even if it's not for me, like, oh, I'll just, tag so and so in it. So it has
Oh,
that
okay.
aspect.
So maybe it's like the group feature that kind of helps out because like I found LinkedIn, it's like you're really kind of on your own, so it's like you get it or you don't, and you just keep searching in the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I,
Okay.
I have I have found nothing through LinkedIn. I mean, I haven't really looked, but nothing has really came to me through LinkedIn.
Okay, that is really good to know. So now I have a couple more questions, kind of like in regards to your occupation and kind of like the skills and like what a day-to-day basis for work is like for you. So can you kind of share your process when it comes to like getting a pitch or like an idea? So when someone gives you like a pitch, what is usually like your first step or like what is your step in like the entire process?
For taking a job or once I already have the job.
So it's kind of like so you work for SNL.
Right.
Yeah, and so when they have like an idea or like a pitch, like how do you go about like receiving the pitch? Like what comes like after that once you get the ideas?
Right. So on SNL, they have like a pretty, I would say it's a typical pipeline, but it's very expedited because of the nature of the show. The
Hmm.
whole thing it happens in just a few days, but it is pretty standard. So like they write the sketches on a Wednesday and we look at the scripts for the ones that get chosen. And it's pretty evident immediately what requires VFX. Sometimes it like literally says on the script, like VFX, this happens. Um, and there's always a meeting that night to sort of clarify that. So the director of the sketch will explain, like, okay, there's sort of, let's say it's a sketch about like a dragon or something. So they will clarify, like, no, this is not going to be a puppet. This is going to be like a visual effect. And there's a lead um, visual effect for every visual effect artist for every sketch. So they're in that meeting and they will receive that. And then from there, it's just a matter of, um, you know, sort of a collaboration between the director. There's sort of a creative designer who will storyboard and give us like sort of specific instructions. Um, so we still have like a lot of creative freedom, but there is like specific instructions to adhere to. It's not like we are
Okay.
just told make a dragon. We are told like here's sort of a concept of what the dragon will look like, and here's the script, and we'll make a version, and they'll say no, it's like a little tweak it this way, and so yeah, it's a typical production pipeline, and people give us feedback, and yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because my I was under the impression it's like they kind of like gave you an idea and then you kind of have to like do everything like the story and then like having to do the visual effects and having to like kind of figure it out. But I think like with this project that I've been working on so far, I've learned that like the collaborative aspect is like really important, like being able to work with people and communicate to make sure that everyone's like happy with what the final outcome is. So I guess with that, can you kind of like share with me what was one of your more like challenging visual effects projects that you've really worked on and like how were you able to just kind of solve it in the end?
Sure. Let's see. I would say one of the more challenging pieces was probably at the show. We did. something called it was a combination of Mario Kart and Last of Us
Yeah, I
that we did
saw
last
that.
year. That was a big challenge. There wasn't really any well, I'm sure, yeah, there were things that came up. I mean, like all SNL things, there's a very strict deadline. So like after it airs, you're done. Like it was pretty much just making it as good as it could be up until the clock, and then it wasn't like something that really needed solving. It was more just like a race to the finish line.
Hmm.
But yeah, there was I would say one of the most intense parts about it was there was a shot with a large Goomba beat that was just glitching out 5 minutes before air
Oh no.
that I was taking over. The director was like right over my shoulder, sort of giving me feedback as I was trying to like patch together a few different things. And uh, honestly, none of it worked. It had to be like cut and, amended for the web upload. But yeah, in situations like that, it's always just helpful to remember that like you're not like doing brain surgery. You're just like, not to say that what we do isn't important, but it's you just do as well as you can. And at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is.
For sure. So I'm assuming you probably have like a lot of projects where you probably had like a similar instance and you just kind of had to just cut it out or just let it go.
Yeah,
That must be like
luckily,
that feeling like must really suck.
yeah, it happens. You get used to it. But
Mm.
yeah, I mean, luckily not everything is as, high speed and intense as SNL. Other shows give you or gigs give you the opportunity to like think clearly and actually, work through problems and yeah, every job's a little different.
Yeah, for sure. So for your visual effects, what software do you use? Like, do you have to like learn a lot of new techniques on a day-to-day basis? Or like, have you used AI at all in visual effects?
So I use Blender. I found it was helpful to sort of have, Blender's free. So, anyone can just get started and learn it or abandon it or, do whatever they want since it's kind of no commitment. And I think that sort of helped me just learn it because it takes with 3D software or, visual effects software, it sort of takes a while to get good. There's just like it's a large part of your brain that you just need to wrap around it. And it's just, I think, helpful that you can, spend 2 or 3 years or however long it takes. Some people learn it incredibly quickly, but
Mhm.
you can just have all that time and not pay anything. Um, so that's pretty much why I learned Blender. I just learned it myself on while I was doing like a video editing job. But yeah, I think it's a good one to know. There's definitely some jobs that require like Houdini or other specific industry stuff software. I had a project last year where I needed Houdini, and I don't know that much of Houdini at all. So when it comes to just like learning other software, you just learn what you need to and try to sort of fake your way through it if you can.
Mhm.
I think Blender's kind of good for that because it's just like the amount of tutorials and how to stuff online is crazy. Like when I learned, I'm so used to that when I started learning Houdini, it was almost shocking to see that it's like very. I mean, there's a good amount, but compared to Blender, there's very little, tutorials and guides. Um, and then in terms of AI, I, I use like it here and there when it comes to like the Photoshop sort of infill or generative fill or like the After Effects, um, Roto Brush, content aware. I guess content aware fill isn't AI, but yeah, I'm very hesitant, and I don't love it. Um, just the nature of it. I feel like I am sort of at a point right now where I am very happy with where my career is, and I also feel like it could like all end tomorrow just because of AI.
Hmm.
Um, like I do some jobs where it's sort of more in the advertising industry space, and it's just crazy. Like these sort of clients will show me like their pitches or their presentations, and it's just AI that is, I would say a year ago it was like 10% of the way there. And now they show me stuff where it's like, oh, this is like 50 or 60% of the way there. They just need me to like sort of polish it up a little bit in some cases. So it's a little scary, and I feel like it's unnecessary and I wish it didn't exist.
No, for sure. Just because like I've also kind of like messed around with AI before as well, but like the visuals are just not there. Like the vision that AI makes, like it just doesn't compare to like what humans can do. I feel like especially when it comes to like the creativity aspect, just because we can use our eyes, like we can make things just naturally look better and not as like computer generated. Because I feel like another thing is like even though people can use AI, it still like looks too computer generated, so it's not natural and people like aren't really a big fan of that. So that's why I still feel like people with your job are still like very important because although what you're working on may not be realistic, it's still important to make it look realistic
Right.
or make it
Yeah.
look fun.
I wish the AI would sort of just like freeze. I mean, now it's like incredible, but if it just sort of froze right now, then I feel like it could be interesting because it is fun. I
Hmm.
play around with it sometimes and it's a lot
Yeah.
of fun. But if it froze where it is right now, then it could sort of crystallize into sort of a style. Because yeah, like you're saying, it does. You look at some AI stuff you can't tell, but others you're like, oh, this is AI, and I have an opinion on the way it looks.
Hmm.
But if that froze, we could have that, 10 or 20 years from now, you could look back at that and that would be like a sort of discrete style. But I feel like it's just going to keep advancing and become amorphous and absorb everything else.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a question in regards to kind of like your own personal stuff that you're working on. So I saw your reel for last year, which was like amazing. So when you're working on like kind of like your own projects, how do you come up with like those ideas and then like kind of like implement it in the end?
Sure. And I'll also say that those reels that I made are like completely instrumental to the visual effects jobs I have.
Mm.
Like I said before that I got a lot of gigs through Facebook and whatnot. That was for like video editing stuff back in the day. But
Ah,
but
okay.
for SNL, what I did was I basically spent a few years learning visual effects, 3D software, Blender, and creating that reel or my what was it, 2021 reel.
Mm.
And it was sort of a process of, I would be really happy with a shot and I'd put it in my reel and then I'd make another shot and it would immediately outclass the other thing and I'd have to take the other thing out. So it was a long, like it took a few years to really like get to a level where everything was sort of matching in quality and like at a level that I wanted. And then I sent that to someone at SNL and that's how I got the job.
Oh, wow.
Maybe they saw like a few things on my resume that sort of made me seem like a industry person, but that reel did the heavy lifting.
Ah, okay.
So, and most of that stuff, yeah, was just personal projects. So I highly recommend if you're visual effects or graphics or a lot of creative whatever it is, make a portfolio that yeah stands out. That's helpful.
Yeah, it was like a really big struggle because like if in college I've been taught like a lot of different skills. So I just kind of threw in like whatever I could into my portfolio. But like with these interviews I've been conducting, I was told that like if you're looking to get a job as a visual effects artist, then you'd only want work that demonstrates visual effects skills that you have and nothing else. Like, don't show
Yeah,
anything
I
else.
would say that's true. It should be specific to the job generally.
Yeah. So it
But
just kind
I
of,
would say that like it should be the job you want. Like I have a variety of visual effects things that I've done from like sort of I'm lucky to be able to choose from what I show in my reel now. I remember at one
mm,
point where there wasn't a lot to choose from, but
mm,
I've done stuff where it's, just like cleaning up someone's like hairline or whatever, or doing like a beauty fix. And I don't put any of that stuff in my reel because that's not the jobs I want to have. I want like, I mean, it sounds sort of obvious that I would put like the coolest things in my reel, but like if I did a really complicated like character animation that, looks good, I wouldn't, I probably would not actually put that in my reel because I don't really do character animation and I don't really
mm,
want to take those jobs.
mm.
I specifically put the jobs where where that I would want to look for. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, because I feel like, because I'm reaching like my graduation point, and as a college student, I just feel like very lost because I feel like at the beginning, it's like the struggle of having to look for a job, and it's like, oh, I don't know like where to start from here. It's all very confusing. There's a lot out there, and I can't really choose or decide like where to go, and like I don't know if my portfolio is good enough, and what if everyone says no. So when you graduated from college, like did you like kind of have like those same feelings? And like if so, like how did you just like go about like after that?
I would say I didn't really have any real doubt. Well, first of all, I went to school for screenwriting actually, so I definitely
Oh
had some
wow.
like reservations about um, what, because I was trying to pursue that more. Um, I was When I graduated, I was like more. I was looking for writing jobs in a more. I don't know. I was just looking for them, and
Mm,
I already had editing gigs, so I wasn't like too stressed out. But I really was. It was a struggle to like sort of look for both, and I also, since I've switched into more visual effects and left the video editing stuff, there was definitely a lot of crossroads there and a
mm,
lot of people would ask, because I did some jobs where I did a little of both, and people would ask me like, what do you prefer, the graphics, the visual effects, or the editing? And I think I enjoy them both. Um, and there's, upsides and downsides to both. I think video editing is can be a lot of have a lot of creative freedom, but I think it can also be very stressful, and it's something that you really need to like when you actually like work on it, you need to like fully lock in. And I think visual effects and graphics are a lot more fun. You can
for
listen to a
sure.
podcast, and yeah, it's
So
very relaxing.
yeah. So you said there's like upsides and downsides to visual effects as well. So can you kind of list off like what are some of the upsides versus downsides? Well, obviously, since you are in this occupation, I'm sure the upsides over completely top the downside. So I'm just kind of curious to hear like what are some of the negative things in going into visual effects?
I wouldn't say they're too significant. I would just say
Mm,
like on a day-to-day basis that like I've done a lot of video editing that is like very repetitive and boring, where it's like you
mm,
do a video. I edited for Condé Nast for a while. They do like GQ and like Epicurious. So if you've seen those videos that are like 10
mm.
people try to cut open an apple or whatever it is,
Yeah.
I did like many of those. And the first one you're like, okay, this is interesting. And then they're like, great, here's another one and another one and another one. And it's the same workflow every time. You put the funny thing at the beginning, and then you do the title, and it's like after you've done two of them, you're like, oh, I'm just like on an assembly line putting this thing here. and then giving it to the next person. Um, so I would say that's not every editing gig, obviously, but I
Mm,
find that it can be very draining. And um, in terms of upside, I would say it can also be very, creatively fulfilling because unlike visual effects, you are telling a story usually in the in for the ideal gigs. You are like really crafting the story and making artistic choices. In terms of visual effects, I would say that um, I really enjoy it because it's a really it can be a satisfying combination of sort of artistic stuff and sort of math stuff.
mm,
There's a lot of like sort of it's not strictly math, but sort of mathy knowledge to wrap your head around about how to animate something or how to I don't know. There's a lot of technical information to make stuff work. So
mm,
I find that's very satisfying. And like I said, you can sort of devote 90% of your attention and also listen to music, which is a big plus. But I would say the downside is that um, often these gigs, if it's not a personal project, you are probably under someone else's vision and not really making as many creative decisions as you would like to be. In the case of SNL, I mean, there's still a good amount of creative decisions. It's not like you're, sending emails or answering a phone. You're still like contributing your vision, but it's still like there is a thing you need to fulfill. And once you do that, you hand it off.
mm. Yeah, because in one of my previous interviews I had, I was told that like as a designer, you need to have very empathetic feelings towards like your higher up or your boss or whoever's vision you're trying to fulfill. So, more times than not, like you're more interested in having to just fulfill like what their requirements are as opposed to trying to make something and being able to jam it into your portfolio as well. So I wonder if there was a way to kind of balance the two where it doesn't have to be to just fulfill your boss's needs. It can be doing that, but also like, oh, it's something I'm quite proud of and something I would like to put into my portfolio.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's uh it's hard to control that sometimes. I would
mm,
say like sometimes you just have to know that what you're working on is not something you're super proud of, but will, fulfill the need at the end of the day. And other times, yeah, you'll get something that just is in my case, it's a great shot and will look great in a portfolio.
mm,
Like sometimes I'll get a shot where it's very tough and very technical, but at the end of the day, it's just like not, you know, what people are going to notice.
mm,
And other times you just happen to get the shot that has like I don't know, Taylor Swift like front and center hero shot and you do one little fix to it and then it's like, "Oh, that's an amazing shot just because I added the little thing." No, it's because it has, a celebrity's face in the center of it, but
mm,
yeah, it can be a little random.
yeah. Um, So, do you have like a favorite project that you worked on? Because I know I kind of asked you like, oh, like what's one of the most challenging projects you've ever worked on, but is there one in particular that you enjoyed working on and why?
Um, Here, let me browse my portfolio real quick.
Mhm.
I have a hard time remembering all of it.
You have so much good stuff, so it's probably hard to choose from, right?
Oh, the I made this shot with sort of a city in the style of Escher that took me about a month to make.
Holy
And
cow.
yeah, a lot of my personal stuff that's in my reel is like close to a month, where it's like, it's not like 8 hours a day for a whole month, but it's
Hmm.
like,
Passion project.
passion.
So,
Yeah, work on it after you get off work or when you get home. And as many hours as you can.
Mm.
So I find that a month is usually the time it takes me to like get something from start to end. And yeah, in this particular case, I just found it very fulfilling. I had like a very clear vision for it. There were challenges, but I found fixes for them, and I was just proud of the way it looked in the end.
Do you take like photographs for when you work on some of these projects that you have in your portfolio?
Do you have a specific one you're wondering about?
We can use I like the mobile home one. That one's really cool. It's
Sure.
because it's on like on top of a mountain. So like for all of these, did you take pictures beforehand and start working on them, or did you like literally like from start to finish do the whole entire landscape and everything?
So the way I did this, the actual building is I took a few pictures of a apartment that I live near, um, and I sort of recreated that as a 3D model, and then I
Mm.
used those photos to sort of like give it the texture. And then for the backgrounds, the first one where it's like sort of like a I don't know, a Utah mountain or mesa or something,
Mm.
that was made with 3D models that I downloaded.
Oh, wow.
The background is just like a image that is like moving. But yeah, the first one is 3D models. The other shots, the forest, the lake, and the mountaintop, those are all drone footage that I just put the building into.
Ah, so it's kind of like a mixture of a bunch of different things then.
Yeah, I was going to do like models for all of them or
Mm.
build all of them from scratch, and then I just realized like because that's usually what I do is most of it is fully CG, but I just realized like, oh, I don't need to. Like there it could be a fun exercise, but there is drone footage that works perfectly. And yeah, it would be sort of a waste of effort.
Yeah. I love that on your portfolio you kind of instead of just showing like the final piece, you also kind of show your process of it as well. Because I stumble upon a lot of portfolios where like you don't really see the process. It's kind of just like the finished product because that's what everyone wants to see. But I think being able to show step by step kind of like what you did or just like a blueprint of what you did is really important. So,
Yeah, I
uh,
would say that about that regarding that. Well, on there's one website I use called ArtStation where I post a lot, and that site encourages you to do that. It says like, oh, if you like post more stuff, maybe more people will see it. So I do it for that reason, but also I would say that more and more in this sort of age of AI, I feel like it's almost like become necessary where like I'll see really incredible stuff and I'm like, how did you like, is this AI? I can't really tell. Or like,
mm,
did you maybe like use Midjourney and how long did it take you? So I think it's like really becoming more critical to like show like I spent a lot of time on this. I like here's how a lot of it was like like manual work versus like some AI stuff where like I'm not like totally against the AI, but like even if it is an AI majority made thing, I would love to see, and I don't think I've ever seen this as like an AI. Granted, I don't look at too much like AI art, but I would love to see something where it's like this is my AI art piece, and here's a time lapse of like the different prompts, the different like iterations it went through, the different
mm,
edits. Because I feel like a lot of AI people say like, no, no, it's not just a click of a button. Like it's I spent a long time using Midjourney on this, and I rarely see that work put on display.
mm. I guess like in a sense it's kind of because you can't really take credit for it because it's not really something that like you did as opposed to something that you manually did for a whole month.
Yeah.
That's something that you could put in a portfolio and be able to actually take credit for. So
Sure.
that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, part of me like sort of at one point I was like almost sort of favoring the mystery of it, like not showing how the how I make it and
Hmm.
sort of leaving it as a yeah, a little question. But yeah, now I'm like totally no, I need to show it because
Yeah.
I just see people where I'm like, oh, that's incredible. I know this is AI, and it almost just devalues it,
Hmm.
devalues everything else because it's all on the same plane. A computer can do that in one click. It takes me a month. And if I don't explain that I made it by hand, it is like, what's
Yeah.
the point?
And doing it by hand is just to show that you really, put passion and time into it in the end.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, I wish we could go back to an age where like AI wasn't taking over.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, but I suppose we will just have to let life take its course and we will see, right?
Yeah. Hopefully it'll
Oh.
pass like NFTs or whatever
Yeah.
else. That's
Yeah.
what I keep telling myself.
Yeah, well also I'm wondering like, oh, okay, so like if AI does infiltrate the film or like the post-production industry at some point, like what's the next step in life for us? Like
Yeah.
what are some other jobs or skills we can use to still, like what was the point going to school?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
just
for
spending
sure.
time to like learn about all this.
I
But
think about this every day of like if tomorrow I couldn't do visual effects anymore, what would I do? And I
mhm,
think for luckily, I don't know. I feel like 3D modeling on its own is like a skill that granted AI is getting better and better at every day, but I feel like that in itself isn't really tied to graphics. You know, there's other industries that use 3D modeling.
mhm.
Um, I don't know about graphics per se, like maybe there's other applications, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
for
I
sure.
think about it every day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's all I have for today. Uh, I just want to say I admire your portfolio so much. I love like all the pieces you have in here, and now that I know that like you spent pretty much like a month on each of these projects, it really shows because I feel like with my generation, like we really try to like speed things up and kind of like take the easy way out with which of course like AI is also part of it. Um, but I just want to say that I really appreciate your work and
Oh, thanks. I
thank you for
appreciate that. Of
everything. Yeah, it's
course.
amazing. And I loved all the work that you do on SNL as well. I love all the skits. They're so funny. I didn't think you were gonna answer me. So I was like, oh, it's probably not gonna happen. But I've been watching SNL since like 2012, since like I was like a baby. So it's pretty
Yeah,
incredible the work that you do.
that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Yeah. It would be like an absolute dream for me to just be able to work on like a team like that, but we will see.
Yeah, you'll
Um,
find something, I'm sure.
yeah. But yeah, that's all I have for today. So thank you so much for your time.
Of
And
course.
yeah, so my project that I'm doing on this, it's gonna be coming out in May. I'm doing like a YouTube channel about like my learning experience with post-production and just like different uh types of occupations like visual effects, composer, the creative director, and you're the last person I'm interviewing for this.
Oh,
So I'm very excited to show you what I have in 2 months.
awesome. Good luck with it.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right.
All right. Nice to
Bye.
meet you.
Yeah,
Bye.
nice to meet you too.